And so now I, as a trans man / biological woman, have to come up and come out of my identity and go back to my biology and say, hey, y'all need to goddamn stop.
Trans women do not belong in women's sports.
Do you guys remember the name Riley Dennis?
Only be attracted to people with one kind of genital.
Yes, that's it. Riley, your genital preferences are transphobic, Dennis. Well, Riley is in the news again, all the way in Australia this time. Fed up parents erupt over a trans woman football player who is the league's top goal scorer. But it is the allegation the trans athlete injured female opponents from an opposing side in a match that has caused some fed up parents and players. Apparently, 12,000 emails were sent to the league. According to this article, no one has had any reasonable response despite all of the emails, warnings of injuries, and how unfair it is. I have actually met Riley Dennis in person. Riley is quite a tall trans woman. I think she's maybe 6'1", 6'2". I've talked about this in videos on this channel before. I completely disagree that a trans woman should be competing in biological women's sports if that trans woman has gone through male puberty, which Riley has.
We're trying to erase the biology behind what it means to be a woman. And that's not what we're about to do. I'm not about to do it with y'all. And I get it. Y'all want to do it for the sake of inclusion, but no, that's not inclusive. That's called erasure.
Sometimes there are just no words. This trans guy got a ton of hate from his own community for simply stating a biological reality. That males and females are different. I'm certainly going to have him in a video very soon, so if you don't want to miss that, make sure you click the subscribe button down below. And I really am loving this new onslaught of trans people sticking up for biological women's rights. Finally, after years, people are out here being brave.
Watching a debate last night on TV about trans women in sports, there isn't a debate. There's no debate. Trans women do not belong in women's sports. There's a reason we separated that, Title IX, long time ago. I want to know why a trans woman thinks if she doesn't compete against women in their sport, that's going to make her less trans. She's still trans. I'm still trans. I still respect you as a transgender athlete, even though you're competing in the men's division. It's fine. Society will appreciate you and respect you a lot more if you leave the women alone. I know, strange.
Jessica absolutely nails it. This is the very reason why the rate of LGBT acceptance overall is down the past 3 to 5 years. It's because of shit like this. Coming for the most vulnerable parts of society, women and children, any sane society is not going to be okay with that. I mean, look at this shit.
We didn't assign a gender at birth.
I'm letting this little person be who they want to be.
It is an experiment. What they're doing is unprecedented.
This tweet explains a lot. Restricted comments like cowards. Note that almost 100% of parents who do this are white. White leftists specifically. Transgenderism, either directly or by proxy, is a gateway to gaining oppression status and an avenue to eschew or minimalize white privilege and white guilt. But back to the trans athletes debate just for a second, because I saw this on Fox News yesterday.
And then over the weekend, Tiffany Thomas won first place in a New York City amateur cycling race. After winning the race, Tiffany wrote that the race made her feel like a superhero, maybe even Superman, since Thomas is a biological male.
I mean, yeah, obviously there's a reason why this trans woman felt like a superhero. It's because of biology. I'm gonna get into that in just a second because I honestly just can't believe we're still on this topic. But first I wanna mention that there are a ton of people that are finally coming around to our side of the argument. Science. Backed by science.
The World Athletics Council has today taken the decisive action to protect the female category in our sport, and to do so by restricting the participation of transgender and DSD athletes. So none of these athletes will be eligible to compete in the World Athletics Championships in Budapest in August.
This was from, let me get this right, the International Governing Body for Track and Field. So yeah, finally some good news. Joe Rogan also spoke out against trans athletes recently on his podcast. Check this out.
This trans athlete thing blows my mind how many people go along with this, that Leah Thomas is still the #1 swimmer in the world and it's a biological male. Yeah. Period. End of discussion. Just the whole thing is so crazy that you can call yourself a woman and then you're a woman. And like, this has nothing to do with trans rights. It just has to do with humans. Like, there's a reason why we make a distinction, why men are not allowed to compete in the women's division. But if you could just decide you're a woman and you compete in the women's division and no one's even allowed to regulate like what that means, and if you have any problem with that, that, you're transphobic. Like, has nothing to do with transphobic. We're talking about fairness in sports. It's crazy.
And yeah, remember, this is the truth, right? We've seen this happen. Even when there is an actual transgender division, right? The NHL did this a few months ago. We still recognized that there is a very clear distinction between people born biologically male and people born biologically female, no matter what hormones they're on, if they have gone through their true sex puberty. For those of you who missed this article a few weeks ago, the NHL apparently had a tournament in Wisconsin that was only for non-binary and transgender players, which in itself, in my opinion, is fantastic. People like myself that are pro-biological women only in sports, or pro-trans women in sports if they have not gone through biological male puberty, I'm all for this. We've been talking about this for quite a while because we think that it is very unfair for people who have gone through male puberty of any kind to compete against biological women, right? And the same goes for trans guys. If trans guys have gone through female puberty and have lived their life as a female for the majority of their life, they are going to be at a severe disadvantage if they compete against men. And you know what? It turns out we were right. It went exactly as you would have expected it to go. NHL promoted trans hockey tournament ends predictably with male domination and concussioned female player. I'm just saying I told you so. I don't want to say that because I love playing hockey. I loved playing hockey. I love sports, but you know, it is what it is. Thanks to the post-millennial, I also know this random hockey fact, which is pretty cool. Despite the NHL's insistence that biology doesn't matter, the fact is that only one woman has ever played in the NHL. On September 22nd, 1992, I don't know how to pronounce this person's name, suited up in front of the net for the Tampa Bay Lightning in a preseason game against the St. Louis Blues, but never played in the regular season. Also makes sense that this woman who was playing in the NHL played as a goalie, because goalies are not allowed to be checked unless they like exit that little red line area. But yeah, generally speaking, they're not being hit. Caitlyn Jenner also chimed in on this topic. Love what she had to say. She said, could you imagine if shortly before the Olympics or several months before the Olympics in 1976, competed in 72 as well, if I declared to be trans and competed with women? Beyond unfair. I know the physical differences and understand being trans. Do not tell me I am transphobic. Love that, Caitlyn. Thank you for sticking up for biological women, even though some people just still don't get it.
Look at that, how close to the sideline that is, right in 2 meters in from the sideline. Farnan fields that ball perfectly, taking a page out of teammate Abby Gustius' book. She's so class at it.
Being trans doesn't mean inherently that I'm going to be a good player. I still work my ass off to be able to be where I am in sports and to be able to continue performing. So often the discussion of trans women in sports comes down to assuming that we are able to play at the same level as men, and we just can't. We are women and we compete equally as a woman.
And what is the reason for that, Emma? Is it because of the slight biological differences that you have with biological males who do not go on HRT? Of course, yeah, that is true. There are slight differences that change. But if that's true, then the same goes for the differences between someone who has not experienced being biologically male at all, aka biological women who are not trans. I don't understand why somebody like you can't grasp this concept. The best way I've ever heard somebody nail this trans women must compete in women's sports debate is by saying that bodies play sports, not identities. Just for a second, while we're on the topic of LGBT in sports, I wanted to mention this because I felt like it was very important, and that is the idea of forcing athletes, basically forcing athletes, to wear pride jerseys, gay jerseys, pride night celebrations, whatever. This is still a huge controversy in the sports world, and as a lesbian, I feel like, you know what, even if I wasn't a lesbian, I would have a lot to say on the topic. Why are NHL players refusing to wear pride jerseys? Explains the league's latest controversy. So apparently one of the players on the Flyers, side note, I'm a New York City Ranger fan, I can't stand the Philadelphia Flyers, but either way, big props to this guy for standing up for what he believes in. This player took a stand and did not wear a Pride Night jersey, and funnily enough, hilariously, his jersey sold out that very next weekend. The Philadelphia Flyers organization, of course, went on to tweeting that hockey is for everybody and that everybody should be proud of who they are. And of course, the media still went into an absolute frenzy trying to get this player canceled, benched, what have you. And interestingly enough, the coach, John Tortorella, who was actually an ex-New York Rangers coach, stood up for the guy.
He's being true to himself and to his religion. This has to do with his belief in his religion. And it's one thing I respect about Provi. He's always true to himself. And so that's where we're at with that.
Again, I'm a lesbian and I absolutely hate the entire concept of forcing people to wear LGBT, rainbow colors, whatever. It is not coming across as tolerant and loving. It is coming across as making people kneel to our cults or else be destroyed or canceled or benched, whatever. It's clear virtue signaling at this point. It's borderline abusive, manipulative, to be honest. I don't think it actually helps LGBT people at all. I think it's making the tolerance for us a lot worse. And I think just a simple campaign like they used to do back in the old days about gay athletes would be great. Even YouTube did a campaign about this a while ago during the Olympics. And I know, of course, there are gonna be a ton of people in my comment section saying, Ariel, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. And if I am, then why are the rates of LGBT acceptance continuously dropping over the past 3 to 5 years once this queer movement just became infested in everyday society? I'm just saying. Just something for you guys to think about this week. If you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up, and I will see you guys back here next Sunday with a brand new video. Until then, I love you, love yourselves, stand up for what you believe in. Bye.